This is Casey Carlson. She's an equity agent with us.
Hi.
She started an amazing company too that she's going to tell you guys about.
Yes. As Paul said, I'm Casey. I've been with Equity for going on a little over 6 years now. And as of recently, I did start a little side adventure too. So what you have in front of you is a charcuterie board from a newer company called Gray's Craze. We have a storefront that is at University and County Line over in Highlands Ranch. And so I wanted to bring you guys samples. These are great for agents because you can give them to your clients as closing gifts, as a welcome home, as a thank you for your open house, client appreciation, whatever it may be.
Do you have a link to your website we can or
yes. So I brought a bunch of these little cards right here, and on the back is a QR code that you can scan. That'll take you to our website, and you can order from there. There's also the menu, so you can kind of see what we offer. We have small cups that are like a single serving snack, all the way up to a large board that feeds up to 20 people, or we have special orders that you can do if you wanted to do like a big raising table, if you had a big party or event that you were hosting. We can also do that.
Great.
And do you have to go to your store
You do not. You can
pick it
order online. You can call us to order, or you can come in store if you want to. But
But
a little bit of everything.
to get it,
We deliver.
Oh,
Yep.
you do deliver.
We do deliver.
Yes.
Okay, so the burning question. How
Yes.
much?
Okay, so in front of you is our small board, and this goes for about $120. And it comes with a little bit of everything, a bunch of different meats, bunch of different cheeses,
Yeah.
fruit,
No,
veggies.
that's awesome. That's
And we
fantastic.
use really high quality product. Everything is from Boar's Head, so you're getting high quality everything.
Yeah, it looks really beautiful.
And then on the side we have a red pepper hummus, a jalapeno hummus, which is really good. We make everything in-house, so all of our dips, all of our hummus, and all of our jams are made in-house.
Wow.
Nice.
Wow. Wonderful.
Do you do
Yeah.
special
Great.
requests? Like if I said I want something with like a Greek theme, something like that?
We can, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Wonderful.
Cool.
Yes.
Very good.
Love that.
So thank you for letting me come.
Yes,
Enjoy the class, everybody.
Thank you.
Should we open this?
Yeah.
If you guys are hungry, yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
and
you
in
guys
here
can do
there's
it.
little spoons and some tongs too.
Very
So
good.
these are little tongs.
Can you see that? Can we see this on the video? We might
Oh
show
yeah,
it
show it
off.
off.
Yeah.
Let's show it off.
And then some little tasting spoons.
Great job.
Beautiful.
You're hired.
Thank you. Do we have scissors? 'Cause
No, it's funny you should bring up the thing
Oh.
about the little kids. I had a little incident a couple of weeks ago.
Uh-oh.
Oh, really? What did he do?
Oh, they didn't really do anything. They were just being little girls. They're curious. And they opened the cupboard. And I think they may have like moved something over a little bit.
Use your pen
Yeah.
real quick.
And so the
That's
seller,
not a big deal. They
well,
got
the
rid of
seller noticed it.
upset.
The seller
Yeah.
noticed it, that
Wow.
something had been moved, because I guess he's very particular about how he arranges. So I got a phone call, and I was like,
Who was in my cabinet? Kind of question.
yes.
Yeah.
And I felt bad, so I had to call the mom, and she was nice. She didn't take it well. It's like,
Oh, really?
Do you think there was a camera?
yeah, it's possible.
maybe
It's
saw.
very possible. Yeah, of course, many people have cameras in their house nowadays.
Right.
But and I have counseled them to, keep your comments till we go outside. Let's move away from the door. Let's not talk by the door. Whether you like it or you don't like it, don't say anything.
Well, this was a buyer you actually brought into the house.
Yeah.
So it was our job
It
bringing
all
a
worked
buyer
out.
into the house
Yeah.
to really do
Yeah,
this.
we're really responsible to
Right,
make sure
that
that
the
they're
parents-
being
Hold this over here.
Come on,
Put
I
this
don't think it's
on
that
camera.
big of a deal,
And
like
we're
a
just over
cupboard and
Well,
something
some
has
people
moved.
do.
Let me
Some
open
people
things.
don't.
Right. Then move your things. They show in your
That's
house.
my feeling. I mean, if it
But
were
if it's
my
a child
house,
opening the cabinets, as what's the responsibility of
Yeah.
us as the buyer's agent,
children.
bringing a family in and asking the buyers to, we're in someone else's house.
Well, my point to the buyer was that it's really important for their safety that we keep them, hold their hands, because we don't know what's
Might be in the
laying around.
cabinet.
Exactly, we don't know, so it's very important for their safety that we hold on to them. And so we decided from there forward to leave the kids at home.
There you go. That's a little tie into some of our working with buyers class on etiquette and showing your buyers, right? So, but thank you for coming today. This is how to work with buyers, and this covers the gamut, really a wide variety of stages in working with buyers. So we're going to cover some things pretty briefly, and then we have links in this program to complete step-by-step guides for each stage of the process. So because it's not a contracts class today, it's not, well, we'll talk about the buyer agency agreement, but it's not a contract to buy and sell class. That would take 2 hours in and of itself. So we'll touch on things briefly with that, but we'll have a separate class on maximizing your contract buy and sell, working with the buyer, and so forth. So, but this really is, how do we work with buyers from consultation to closing? So, the objective here is to basically conduct a confident buyer consultation, building trust from your first meeting through the signed agreement. And who let the dogs out? And then and how to present and explain the exclusive right to buy buyer agency agreement, and execute every stage of the process really with the best care and best professionalism that you can do. And then building a relationship throughout the whole process, before you meet with them even, and during the process, after the sale closes, and to create lifetime advocates for your future business as well. So those are our objectives. Have you guys been to Equity Elevate and seen all the checklists and different things, the how-tos and all that? Is everyone pretty familiar with that?
Really helpful.
Okay, good.
Very
Because
helpful.
a lot of these things some things are referenced in there, and so I don't want to spend too much time going in, because we will have a couple hours going into every nut and bolt, but we'll cover the big things. So, and if those who are watching online or don't know where some of these things are at, let me go through and show you. If you go to Equity Elevate, you'll find right on the front page how-tos, and the how-tos. Okay. Dun, 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 dun. About blank. Okay, let's not do that. Okay, I'm sorry, right here. So it was already right there in front of my face. So there's seller side, there's buyer side. So buyer side how-tos, there's getting started with a potential buyer, there's strategies for winning a competitive offer, your offer is accepted, now what the steps in the process, preparing a proper inspection objection, and buyer side email communication templates. All those things, sources are right there for you. And there's also contract examples for the exclusive right to buy buyer agency agreement, contract example for the contract to buy and sell. So everything is right there for you to have a template to work with.
So what do you want to do the resources?
The resources. Yeah. Buyer side transaction resources. Here we've got. So there's a few things that in the process that you'll want to use in your presentation, and some of those things are: there's a buyer questionnaire you can fill out as you're talking to a buyer with information about the buyer and what they're looking for in their home. There's sometimes you can email it to the buyer and have them fill it out in advance of the meeting, right? So there's some tools. There's a home buying process chart, which is real helpful to explain the process to the buyer. And it's crooked, of course. So. And these can all be customized in the Equity Marketing Center with your information. So we'll go over that in a moment too, as far as what's available there too. So getting back to the outline. So those are some things that you want to get prepared before your first meeting. Where are you guys at in the class here as far as have you worked with a lot of buyers over the years, or you worked with a few buyers? How's your, where are you at in the
Few buyers.
few buyers? Okay, all right. How about
I've
yourself?
had lots of buyers.
Lots of buyers?
But I'm not familiar with the portal. So
Okay, good. Okay.
I gotta get on it.
So this will be helpful for you. All right. So these are some tools for you. I mean, Tricia, you've had a few or
Yeah, a couple.
a couple? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Lots over the years. And,
I've worked with buyers in the past, but since I was out and back,
Yeah,
again,
so-
I
so-
feel like I'm learning the whole process all over
yeah,
again.
some things have changed a little bit
Poor
too.
Sarah,
right?
she's had to listen.
You're doing great.
That's great.
You're doing great.
Yeah.
But
So-
yeah, something we just want to highlight is that Elevate has a ton of stuff back there. So a lot of people don't realize how much is actually there. But I mean, if you have any questions about how to fill out any of the documents, all those templates go through anything that you could possibly come up with in your transaction. So just a reminder that
Yeah. So
there's lots of things in there.
yeah, and we've really tried to update them. If you notice anything that needs updating that we may have missed, because there's a constant process of updating them, please let us know, because we'll definitely make sure they're up to date. And everything should be up to date now, but of course that could change in January when any updates to the forms come out, right? And one thing that I want to point out too is the Marketing Center. If you don't have a buyer presentation together yet, there's a great resource on the Equity Marketing Center as well. So you'll see there's marketing bundles for open houses, social media, you can, for your listings, if you're helping a seller, all those things. And there's also, if you scroll down, there's our presentations. There we go. There's presentations, so you can create your own custom presentations for your buyer. And I'm not sure why we're a little slow today in the system, but there's several different templates that you can use and customize and make it your own with your own biography and everything. So all right there. That is really
If
weird
you're
the way it's
if you're an Apple user and you're not using Chrome, use Chrome.
Okay.
Right.
With this, because that's what I found. It was all jumbled, and I was like, "What is going on?"
Yeah, and this should be on Chrome here, so
Yeah.
this
So
is on Chrome. But
I
anyway,
feel like our internet is slow.
yeah, and it's kind of slow in here, but so
But that is one thing to remember, is because you're like, "What is going on?"
yeah, and it's pretty self-explanatory when you get in there as far as what things you can change, what things you want to change. So you can just take some time and find the one that works best for your personality and customize it, make it your own. And the template for the exclusive right to buy, we've got that.
Greg,
Hey, there's me.
it's your face.
Yeah, my title goes here. That's a funny picture, isn't it?
It's very good.
All right. So back to
Gotta
the
hire that guy.
right. Exactly. He's got a face for radio. This guy.
Yeah. Oh, no.
No, Sarah, no, it's a great
Just
photo.
kidding. Just kidding. Yeah, there we go. Down a little further. So the buyer agency agreement. Yep, there we go. Okay. So this has everything in here. And basically, you could copy this template, have it ready to go in CTM. So you can save a template. Do you guys use CTM, everyone here? Okay. So have you created templates that you can copy and use for, yeah.
In the past, I did.
Yeah, it's nice so you can, there's a lot of boxes to check, and sometimes it's easy to forget to check certain boxes. So it's good to create a template and just take this copy, create it, and then customize it for each particular buyer and transaction. So creating a template is one way you can just say, buyer template, and then when you go to create a new contract, you can copy that one from that and put it in there and then change all the pertinent information.
So we can download this one into our CTM and download into our CTM
Not
templates,
exactly.
or we look at this
Look
and
at
narrow
this
back
and
and forth and fill out our own templates.
Fill out your own template.
Okay.
So,
And then save it as my
Right.
buyer template or whatever.
exactly.
Okay.
I notice every time I log in that CTM is saying that they're doing an update. They're gonna be changing the whole way it looks and such. Do you know?
Yeah, they've been saying that for about a year now.
Okay,
so,
so I won't hold my breath. In other words.
yeah, we'll hold
And I was thinking, I'm not going to get back into
No,
it until
someday, you know. And
Yeah.
But yeah, just know those tools are available for you on Equity Elevate. So you've got those tools available for you, so you can copy those, have them ready to go. There's a contract to buy and sell. There's exclusive right to sell listing agreement for your sellers. So all those things are in there for you to use, and then save as a template. So the thing about working with buyers is just being ready before you meet with them, of course, right? Hey there.
Hi.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. So the buyer consultation. One of the things that I think, and that's paramount, and is your initial interview and how that's going to take place, right? And how you establish rapport with that buyer, how you find out what if they're qualified, number one, and also what is going to suit them the best, right? Because you don't want to waste a lot of time running somebody around that you're looking at the wrong properties or you're not ready to buy yet. Find out where they're at. So the initial interview, what their motivation and timeline, how financial ready they are, their needs and preferences, and their describing and explaining the buyer agency agreement, so that you can go out and show them properties and they understand how the commission process works.
I usually try and make sure that they're pre-approved before we even meet. Like, that's just like the first step of, if you spoke to a lender, have you figured out numbers? Because there's a lot of ways that a buyer interview or consultation can go, and it seems like you're kind of pulling at a bunch of different things if you don't truly know if they're ready. If they don't know their price point, they're kind of off thinking of all these things, where our job is to kind of bring them down to what is actually going to happen. So that would be my suggestion, is like, hey, before we meet, can you speak to somebody you know as a lender, or here's a couple references to touch base with them first, and then we can kind of chat about where to go from there. Would be my
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
I know that we are supposed to get the buyer agency signed before we ever take them out to see a home.
Mm-hmm.
But in the past, if somebody just saw a house online that they wanted to see, before all the lawsuits and everything, I would I would accommodate them without getting the whole buyer agency form signed. Is that, and I know other agents are still doing that, so I'm just asking, how strict is that?
Well, I think the important thing, and what the Real Estate Commission in Colorado's position on that, as I understand it and what I've read about it, is that the buyer needs to know that they're responsible for commissions before you show them a house. Okay. Now, some buyers, you may show them that use the broker's disclosure to buyer form with the additional part on there that they added in August of 24, which explains that they would be responsible for X amount of commission, right? So that can suffice, okay, and you can provide that to them. But also, sometimes, the buyer may call on your listing, want to see it, so that you may want to meet them there at the listing, use that form, explain they're a customer. Definitions of working relationships are on that form, and so you can provide that to them. Other times, it's better to really kind of slow down the process and have a conversation with them and what they're looking for. Many times we've run out and shown properties to people that aren't qualified, right? So having a phone conversation with them over the phone may save you a lot of time and also save the buyer a lot of time. Right? So in that, you can then get into how you serve the buyer, what you're going to do differently, and send them you can email them the buyer agency agreement. Okay, so they have all the information. So those are, I think, some tools, and we'll talk about some of those things further here as well. But the buyer definitely needs to know how commissions work. You can't have a surprise commission, anymore, right? Anything you want to add to that?
It's also for their protection. So if you preface it that way, like, I get you want to see this tonight, but at the same time, like, I do need to at least send you this disclosure for your own protection, because I want to make sure you know exactly like what you're getting into, and how I deal with people, things like that. So if it is kind of the trial by fire, the buyer disclosure works well, but
Did they have to
buyer-
sign that one? Can't remember.
You have to prove that you've given it to them. Technically, there's a place you put a place for them to sign it. But if they refuse to sign it, you can't force them to sign it. But most people will sign it if you explain it's just a disclosure form.
What is it called? Disclosure form?
It's called the brokerage disclosure to buyer.
Okay.
And since it is a disclosure, they don't technically have to sign
To
it,
sign,
but
yeah.
you do need to show that
Document
you
that you provided.
brought it. So what I've done is like taken a picture by the address number with the form there, like just to kind of, if you email it to them through CTM, you'll have that proof. But if it's kind of, I don't know their email, I'm just meeting these people out there, that picture at least kind of said, well, I had it with me at this address, like, there's not much else we can do.
So along those lines, if you had on your buyer's agreement that it was going to be a 3% commission, for instance, but the seller only agreed to 2.8 at closing, are they going to be charged that other percentage?
Yeah, unless you amend your buyer agency agreement.
Okay, yeah, that just popped into my head when you
Right. And then you want to have that conversation with them up front, because
well, we had that conversation up front, but I bet you they forgot, and I didn't think about it till just now when you.
right. So you have a decision to make there. Do you adjust your compensation, or do you have the buyer pay that? Right?
Okay. So, thank you.
But that's definitely, and it's good you had the discussion before when you submitted the offer, and then when they came back at whatever the percentage was, and
right.
So good.
Since we're talking about commissions,
Yeah.
I don't know if you're going to talk about it later, but do you guys have any suggestions for? I've come across this a few times where buyers are interviewing multiple agents, and it's more on the seller side, but like sellers are interviewing multiple agents, and one agent may be offering a lower commission than another agent, and some of them discounted or tied into different if you buy and sell with me, I'll give you a discount, that kind of thing. And I know you've mentioned tiers before, but it's like you get that. I feel like you kind of get that one shot with the listing presentation, and then you don't know who else they're interviewing. You don't know what they're offering to them. So then if they go with somebody else because they say, oh, well, they offered a lower commission. So is there anything after that we can do, or is it kind of decisions made?
Well, it's offering value. What value you provide and your expertise, and what you're going to do for them, as opposed to what that other person may be doing. And that's really comes down to, selling yourself and selling your value and the value of your brand, right? And what your position is on that.
I feel like I go through all that in my listing presentation.
Yeah.
I have a really nice listing presentation.
Do you ask who else they're interviewing?
I don't ask who it is.
So I would just ask, I'm sure you're doing your due diligence. Like, who else are you going to be interviewing after me? And then if you hear Redfin, if you hear all these things, I just want to warn you up front that somebody will probably discount their commission to sell your house. Then you can go into again why your value would be better than a discounted commission, or just preface, just try and get in front of the conversation and say, this is probably going to happen. And if it does, I'm not saying, you have to go with me, but maybe circle back with me and let's have a conversation surrounding that.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of opens the door to, like,
Right.
come back, let's talk about it. It might not be what you want to hear and you're going to keep your commission the same, but at least maybe you could have a conversation where you get to reintroduce your value to them, or if they are going to sell and buy, maybe you are willing to change what you're going to do. But
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. That's very
Okay.
good.
I like that. That's a good idea.
Yeah, and
I
then
like that.
and also just talk about if they're willing to discount. When you have that other second conversation, if they're willing to discount right off the bat, how are they going to represent you?
I love that one.
In the process, right?
Right.
How
Yeah,
would
and
you
I've
do
said
that?
that before. Yeah. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's funny. I said that before. Like I feel like I've done a lot of this stuff, and it's just like sometimes, like a lot of times, the sellers are just like, they just want to save money. Like they're just like,
Well, and it's a
And
business
it's
decision.
like,
You
well,
have to decide.
Yeah.
How.
yeah,
And some are worth
right. Yeah.
worth taking, right? So,
Mhm.
but
And back to the buy side
Yeah.
on this contract.
Yeah.
So we're taking the buyer out. And
Right.
we told them that yes, now we're in charge of paying you're in charge of paying my commission,
Mhm.
and explained that as it's always been, though, the seller traditionally has paid. So we will present the offer
Mhm.
and ask the seller to pay this.
Mhm.
And, let's just put a number out. My number is 2.5%, because that's the first thing you're going to say, well, how much? So then if we say, well, what if that seller isn't willing to pay that much, and that seller's only going to offer 1.5. Let's just, I'm pretending I'm the buyer,
Sure.
or 2. And if I come back and say, well, that will be your responsibility. That could be one answer. Or well, we could do an amendment to this contract.
Mhm.
Once we're negotiating, and if we push back and it's reasonable, I mean, I'm doing my part and I can't go below 2%, then we'll do 2%. Well, how do I know you'll amend the contract? Why don't you just put 2% in the contract now?
Mhm.
So my question to you is, are you seeing in the contracts in the back end from all the agents that there some language that we might put in the contract, then saying that I would agree to an amendment if needed at 2% or something? How are we telling our buyer, who maybe just picked up the phone and said, I want to see this house, by the way, I love working with you, I'll sign the contract,
Right.
but I don't know you that well, so I don't really want to
Well,
trust that you'll go down from 2.5 to 2.
right. Well, and we don't really have any language for that.
Okay.
I don't want to encourage that
Right.
because that just
We're locking ourselves in.
locking yourself into that, right?
Yeah.
And it's really a business decision, but also it's a decision that the buyer has to make, right?
Mm-hmm.
And should the buyer, this is what your fee is, okay? And and most sellers are paying that with the current market conditions.
Right.
Now, if the property
They
was
need
priced
they
as
need
such
the
where it really made sense for the buyer and was a lower amount, and it makes sense for them to pay your commission as well, or pay the difference in that, maybe it makes sense for them. Maybe it's priced very low, it's the house that's perfect, the seller's only offering a certain amount, and they're willing to pay that difference. Right? I don't think we should assume right off the bat the buyer is not going to be willing to pay it. Right.
That the buyer isn't
Right.
willing to make that gap, or that the
Right.
seller isn't going to meet it,
Right.
or
Most
for me to
sellers are-
suggest that we could amend the contract and make it lower. I'm already negotiating my value, which is kind of doesn't. I
You're
don't
negotiating
doesn't
with
fit
yourself
well,
pretty
sit
much,
well
yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
buyers think that, well, I don't need you anyways. I'm just going to go knock on the seller's door then.
Well, and then I think we have to get into
Do we really
articulating.
want that buyer?
Right, you have to articulate your value
Yeah.
and what you're going to do for them, and that's what we'll go through some of the process here in this class. So, anything else you want to?
Sorry,
you would address that
sidetracked
one?
Yeah, no, I mean, I just think saying like everything in the negotiation for a house is negotiable, including commissions. You will know everything up front because I'm going to go through this entire contract and offer with you. So, and then the counter offer if they come in and want to pay me less. And it's all a discussion. You don't have to sign anything. You're not locked into anything until we have this discussion. if at that time you want me to amend our buyer agency agreement along with the counter proposal or something, we can discuss it. Everything's negotiable, but at this point, let's just try and find the house, negotiate with the seller for what I feel I'm valued at, and then we can go from there. And I think that just kind of opening up that you're willing to revisit, but at the same time it might not even, it's a mute point possibly. So
Well, from my experience recently, you don't know whether you're going to be working with this buyer and showing them 3 houses
I know.
or 50.
It could take 6 months.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a good
And
point.
we do need to get our commission.
Gas is expensive.
Right. So,
it is, yeah.
all right.
I know.
So some things, just real quickly, some things that are getting ready for a buyer. Of course, having your buyer guidebook, getting everything ready on Equity Elevate, or the having that customized and all ready to go at the time before you meet with your buyer. Some things that I like to do to provide the buyer when I'm meeting with them for the first time are some statistics on the areas that they're looking at. And RPR is a good resource. RE Colorado is a good resource on the market statistics for what they're looking at. Some things that'll be important are what the percentage of sold price to list price are, what the days on market are, what the median prices are in that area, and what the inventory looks like, what the supply and demand looks like, and that way you can coach them and counsel them on the best course of action for a particular property that they might be interested in. So if they have this information on what the market is doing, it gives them better tools and gives you better tools to help them find the right property and make the right offer. Because if they've heard that the market is really soft and and prices have dropped so much in this area, right? But they're looking at a price range and looking at an area where it's very local, as we know, it could be totally different. Things could have multiple offers. Things could, be selling for 100% of value or a little more, right? So having those tools ready when you meet with them first time, I think is very helpful. So, and it's real. I don't know if you use NAR RPR. That's included with your realtor the association dues, but that's a nice tool. It gives a nice presentation on market. You can pick a zip code, you can pick certain areas, and provide that. Also in RE Colorado, in the statistics, you can put in geographic areas or specific subdivisions and provide that to them. So.
I would say just prep is key, preparation. So if you're just preparing them, like Greg said, with stats and, hey, this isn't going to be a soft market where you're looking at. And so then you're not dealing with the, not really argument, but the issue of, well, I'm going to offer on this, but I'm going to come in $50K less. And then you're writing like offers and you're like, this is just, it saves you time, energy to kind of just prep them for every part of the transaction, whether it's offering, inspections, things like that.
Cool. So the pre-consultation preparation, how did the buyer find out about you? When you get the phone call and, wow, a buyer, wait, woohoo, let's go take them out and look at houses, right? But first we got to find out some things about them. How did they find out about you? Did they see online? Were they referred by a friend? And probably did you meet them at an open house, or how did you find that buyer? And things that I like to find out are, what properties have they seen so far? What have they seen in person? Have they been going out to open houses? Where are they at in the process? And what have they viewed online? And where are they viewing online? Are they going to Zillow, Redfin, Realtor.com? What places are they looking for finding properties? And then the personalized market snapshot we talked about a moment ago with their target area and price range gives them a good idea of what to expect in the market. And then have ready your buyer presentation packet. We talked about that a moment ago. And I like to have when you can, I like to meet with them in the conference room here or in a quiet place. Sometimes it's a video call, a Zoom call. Sometimes it's a phone call when you're first meeting with them, and then they want to, they're relocating from out of state. They're going to be in town this couple weekends from now, and you kind of set the groundwork for what you're going to do from that point forward. So, have you guys done Zoom meetings with buyers or sellers before? Are you guys familiar with that? Do you have are you set up? You can do a free account, of course. It limits the amount of time you can use, but you can do a free account on Zoom if you need a Zoom call with buyers. It wasn't really a thing until COVID, right? But became a necessity.
I just want to make a comment about Zoom. I have a listing now, which is sorry why I keep getting phone calls, and I got so many requests from people who claim to be either agents or somehow connected with Compass.
It's
asking for Zoom, asking for a Zoom meeting related to my listing, and we just want to know. We want more information about the home, and we want to meet with you on Zoom. And the house had been listed for maybe 2 or 3 days, and I must have had 15 requests.
Wow.
From
it's a scam.
Compass.
It's a scam, yeah. What they
regarding
they're just a scam.
The first time I got it, I thought, oh, somebody's interested in the house. I should do what I can to give them whatever information they want. And fortunately, I didn't have time to do the Zoom. And then right after that, I started getting the other Zoom requests, and I'm like, this is nuts.
It's not good for the Compass agents.
Right, right. So definitely, you never want to click on someone you don't know Zoom invite, okay? Because they can then take over your computer, okay?
Right.
They can.
So I just wanted to
so never,
give you all
never do that.
Watch out for.
You can do a polite thing and say, well, I'm sorry, my system doesn't allow me to click on links that are from people I don't know. And be happy to talk to you on the phone. See if it's a legitimate lead or not. Most of them just go away. They just
That is a great point though, because there's a lot of scams, and there's a lot of people like that will text you and say, "Hey, I want to see this house." The first thing that I ask them for is, "Okay, send me a picture of your driver's license," and they never respond again. I can't do anything with your driver's license. Like, you can give your driver's license out to anyone. It's not going to hurt you. So, I mean, that would just be my first response to anybody that's asking me to see a property. And it's just for my safety and yours. I want to know that you're a legit person. Also, if you have a Smedra account, you have Forewarn. So putting their number into Forewarn to make sure it is a legit, like the names match up, things like that.
That's a good point.
For your protection. So with buyers, that is definitely something to verify. Don't just meet people out at a house.
Is Forewarn an app?
It is an app, yeah.
Because I called Smedra, it was some time ago, maybe a year or two ago. They didn't know anything about it and said it was a paid subscription as far as the woman who was helping me. And
so this last year they included it in your dues, so you don't have to pay for it. So, or maybe it was the last 2 years, I think.
Yeah, last 2 years.
But,
last 2 years.
Yeah, but it's a great app. Like I use it personally too.
I do too.
So
I use it for work
just
and
get the
personal.
Forewarn, or do I have to do call Smedra and they'll?
No,
it's already there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't
go
know.
on to Smedra's website. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It's okay. I'll
the Forewarn has the little shield like that. Is what the app looks like. So.
Yeah, that's a really good point for people that you don't know that call to see a house and you have no idea
who they are. Yeah.
Right? So that's real helpful. So that's important. And in showing the house, there's a couple things we'll talk about too about if it's someone you don't know, about protecting yourselves and things you can do when showing the property, or bring someone with you, or that type of thing. So this is a guide for the buyer consultation, and I think the important thing to remember is the buyer really they may have an idea of what they want, but you want to find out and you want to establish some rapport with them, and asking a lot of questions and taking notes and making sure, like, what's the main reason you decided to now is the time to move? What's their situation? Tell me about your typical weekend. What types of things you like to do for fun? What types of, what's their lifestyle requirements for their new home? And then, 5 years from now, if we walked in your dream home, what would your daily life look like there? Those are some things to get them thinking down the road and what the perfect home looks like. What do you love most about where they're living right now? And what are you ready to change? Right? So those are things that I think are important questions to find out. Property and neighborhood preferences. Talk about, walk me through what your must-haves versus your nice-to-haves are. What are some absolute minimum things you have? 3 bedrooms, minimum 2 baths, whatever the case may be, right? So find out what those minimums are. What would they like to have? Well, we'd love to have a 3-car garage. Well, is it absolutely necessary? Well, maybe not absolutely necessary, but we'd love to have it, right? So find out what also things are important to them. Do they have pets? What hobbies are important to them? Do they like to garden? Anything that they need a special place for in the house? And then what does the ideal neighborhood look like? Schools, commute, walkability, what things are important to them. So finding all these things out will help you narrow down the right property for them. And sometimes, keep in mind, sometimes what they initially want might change a little bit. And that happens a lot. So,
all the time.
Everyone. I'm just kidding.
Right. So, they have the ideal thing in mind, but they may not be able to afford it, right? Or they, they realize, well, I really don't want an hour commute, or I really don't want I'd rather live an hour away so I don't have to have a postage stamp a lot, right? So things like that. So those are things that can change, right? And also between the dynamics between a husband and wife or partners, one may be dead set on something, the other's dead set on something else, and so bringing them together and part of our counseling degree that we have in real estate, right? So,
Yeah.
we help with that. So,
Marriage.
That's
right,
good.
right.
Yeah, I want a big yard. I don't want to mow a big yard. Oh, okay.
Exactly.
Who's gonna win?
Right.
Sit back and watch.
And what when I'm meeting with someone, I take them through that buyer chart, kind of a flow chart, and I really want them to know and find out, of course, if they're the first-time buyers or how often they've purchased, because it really makes a difference on how you're going to get into the nuts and bolts of the process. First-time buyer is going to need a little more hand-holding in certain areas, but I like to go through the flow chart and describe how they're protected and how I'm going to help them through the contract in protecting their rights in the contract. And so you take the flow chart and just walk them through, when we find you the perfect house, that's when my job really starts in making sure that you understand your rights in the contract. So I do that throughout the presentation and up to the buyer agency agreement, so they know that we're going to be there for them every step of the way. Okay, and so the timeline and process, what the ideal timeline looks like, and I think a lot of these questions come from what their answers are. The next question that you have for them comes from how they answer the previous question, right? So I don't use I wouldn't say it's a checklist or a script. It just depends on what's most important to that buyer and what, there's some general things you need to find out, but find out, and establishing a rapport, I think is the most important, because you're going to be out there showing them houses, you're going to be, spending some time with them, and you want that buyer also to understand that you want to be able to sell that house when they're ready to move. And so you're going to get them a house that's a good value, that's a good investment, something that's going to make sense years down the road. Let's go back to so the presenting your value, we're talking about this a little bit, presenting value. And I think in those questions you ask them through the process, if you have time to take with them. Sometimes we rush through things and we can have a tendency to go out and meet someone, and maybe we should have a consultation with them first before doing that and establishing your value, and they'll understand that you're worth that extra commission, right? So, yeah. And in terms of the process that you go through when you're working with a buyer, you typically meet them here or at a coffee shop or it just depends, right?
I don't mind meeting buyers at the first showing. Like, I feel like it gives that, like, as kind of a, let's walk through this home. We can chat about what they like, what they don't like, where they're at, things like that. So it kind of gives us, like, something to go off of as we're initially meeting, talking, things like that. But that does mean that you need to do a buyer disclosure or buyer agency if they're not comfortable with that, then presenting that beforehand is good. But yeah, so I mean, I've met people at Starbucks, or I meet them at our first showing and just kind of say, you know, let's meet 10 minutes before our showing, talk out like by the cars, things like that, to kind of establish where we go from here. But yeah, I've done it both ways.
Yeah, we always find situations where we have to meet them at the first house or that type of thing. You know, it just depends on the situation. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and if you have time to meet with them, I think beforehand, whether it's like I say on the phone or Zoom or in person, I think it gives you some time to really find out more what they're interested in, establish your value as well. So, some things when you're going through your questions and your consultation, you know, basically bring up some examples of things that you've done for your clients and help them avoid a bad house that maybe had inspection issues, you know, and let them know that you're not here just to sell them a house. You're here to help them get a house that them and their family are going to love for years and years, and also that you know, if they ever want to sell it, you want to help them sell it and be successful with that. So address the compensation conversation proactively. I think it's best to just bring that up in the process and explain that in the buyer agency in paragraph 7.3 that basically you authorize me to collect the compensation from the listing brokerage firm or the seller, and we're going to ask for this amount in the contract. If that ever changes, or if they're not offering that or negotiate, things are open for negotiation as we discussed earlier. But this is you as the buyer are responsible for that, and it's not likely it'll come up. But if it ever comes up that they're not offering the compensation, then we'll talk about it and see if it's the right property for you, and if it makes perfect sense, then maybe it is best for you to pay that compensation.
An analogy that Paul wanted us to bring up is basically medical insurance. So everybody knows, like, everybody's gone to the doctor, they've had medical insurance, they understand that sometimes, you know, I'm going to go and my insurance is going to pay for everything. And then sometimes I go and I'm going to be charged out of pocket. And that's a good analogy to bring up with a buyer is, you know, sometimes the seller is going to pay for the entire part of the commission. There are other times where maybe you will have to front something out of pocket as well. So there's dialogues in Elevate that kind of go through that in a smooth way. So something that if you find yourself struggling with that kind of dialogue is you can look up those dialogues in there and see if you can find an analogy that works well for you that can relate, other people can relate to, because it's not like they buy and sell a house every day. So finding a different analogy that maybe they can understand works well.
That's a good one though. Like the insurance is
Yeah,
love
he
that.
brought, yeah,
Insurance is beautiful.
yeah, he brought that up, and I was like, that's really good.
So basically, going through the process, confirm the next step. You know how you're going to work from there. Setting up the MLS search. You know, based on everything we've seen, are you comfortable working together? You know, and it usually just kind of flows, and you know, you kind of it just kind of flows through the process. Now, presenting the exclusive right to buy agreement. Okay, before we look, I'm going to walk you through the agreement. We'll be signing, I believe, in complete transparency. You should understand exactly what you're signing, what I'm committing to you, and what this means for our partnership. Let me take section by section. So, why this agreement exists and what it basically is required by the state of Colorado as a licensed broker for me to represent you as your buyer's agent, and also discloses how we'll be working together, and also your commitment to me, as well as my commitment to you. So it talks about how long we'll be working together, the home we're searching for, how I get paid and by whom, and then my promise to you and how I'll represent you and what I'm asking from you. So let me go through this.
And I think I try to point out like a normal buyer agency agreement is 3 to 6 months, but if you're not comfortable with that, we can go weekend by weekend if that's what you would choose to do. And it's a lot more work for you, but at the same time, if it's someone that's just learning you, knowing you, like I want you to want to work with me just as much as I want to work with you. So maybe we do a trial, agreement for weekend and see how it goes. And so there's ways to get around making people feel like they have to commit the full force to you when they don't really know you.
Right, and you can do it week by week if you wanted to. Exactly. You could do it day by day. I mean, it depends. You could do one day. Property by property.
I know.
A lot of amendments on
properties.
that.
Yeah.
Buyer insurance. So why does this exist? Colorado now requires either broker disclosure buyer or the exclusive right to buy or buyer agency agreement before I can show you any homes. It's not optional, but the terms inside it absolutely are negotiable. And first thing I understand with this agreement is as much a promise from me to you as it is from you to me. When you sign this, I'm legally committing to work exclusively in your corner, not the sellers, not the other agents, yours. So that's a good way to explain that. In the how long we'll be working together, of course, that, like you said, 3 to 6 months typically, but that's certainly negotiable. If they want to become comfortable with you, you can make that a shorter time and then keep extending it. The home we're searching for, the section basically we describe what you're looking for, the price range, the type of property. I usually just residential real estate, but if the buyer has more specific needs, you can enter more specific needs. How I get paid, and basically a little note on this: never apologize for your compensation. State it clearly, then explain what it covers. Practice saying the number out loud before even the buyer meeting. So they're basically section 7.3.1 states that I'm authorized to request payment of the brokerage firm success fee from either or both of these parties: the seller's brokerage firm, the seller. The buyer is responsible only for any portion of the success fee that is not paid by either party, and only if the broker discloses the amount in writing before the buyer enters into the contract with the seller. So I'm so glad that they changed the contract a couple of years ago to add the compensation in paragraph 29, because it makes it much more transparent than it ever used to be, right? And so that up front, we know what we're asking. We know with the buyer up front what the seller is willing to pay in that negotiation. So my promise to you, this is the part that I take seriously. They aren't just legal words. My professional obligations: loyalty, confidentiality, disclosure, reasonable care and skill, and anything. And basically, I bring my full expertise every step of the way. Anything I know that affects your decision, you'll know as well. Confidentiality: your budget, time frame, and motivation, they stay with me. And loyalty: your interests come before anyone else's, including mine. So
I like the including mine, because it like makes people think or kind of see like, oh, you are really working for me. Like, I'm not here for, of course I have a career, I need to get paid, this is my job, but at the same time, like, our needs or wants are not thought about when we're negotiating for our buyer. It's clearly what they need, what they want, and we will try and get that for them.
Great, can you go back? I just want to take a photo.
Oh, sure. Which?
Oh, okay, yeah. No.
Right there.
Are you going to send us? You can send
Are you
us.
guys-
Yeah, these are all linked into the presentation. We'll send this out as well.
Oh, okay,
And
great.
these are all linked in the presentation too.
Okay.
So my promises to you. So Colorado law requires there's specific uniform duties, whether I'm a transaction broker or a buyer agency, that I'll exercise reasonable skill and care, including not limited to performing the terms of the agreement with the buyer, presenting all offers to and from the buyer in a timely manner, disclosing universal material facts I know, advising you regarding the transaction, advising you to obtain expert advice on material matters about which I know, but specifics are beyond my expertise. I'm not a structural engineer. I've seen a lot of houses that look really funny, but
I'm looking for one right now, like as we speak.
a structural engineer.
Yeah, I have a call in the like one right now. I'm waiting for a call back.
We've got some. There's some on
I've
the
called
hotline
like 3
too.
so far.
Have you? Okay.
Yeah, and
All right.
2 are a strikeout, and I'm waiting for the third one.
Okay.
If you
Did
have
you,
any,
did you use Dan?
I called, and on his voicemail he says he doesn't do evaluations anymore, and I need an evaluation. So I didn't even leave a voicemail because he doesn't do that anymore.
He just did one for me last month.
Really?
Yeah. That's weird.
Well, maybe I'll just leave a message anyway.
Yeah. That's strange.
Just in case you still do though.
Yeah.
In case your voicemail's wrong.
So and I go, and you can go through this in the presentation because it's right there in the buyer agency agreement. This is all right in the buyer agency agreement, and you can use this in your buyer presentation or go right from the buyer agency agreement. And I'm going to keep you fully informed regarding the transaction, accounting in a timely manner for any money you received. I must not disclose this information without your informed consent. And you'll only pay more than what you're offering, what your motivating factors are, that you'll agree to financing terms other than what you're offering, and any material information about you, unless disclosing it is required by law, like if you're going to occupy the property as your primary residence or you're trying to commit fraud or something like that, which I wouldn't work with you anyway, but and as your buyer's agent, I'm going to promote your interest with the utmost faith, fidelity, and loyalty, and seek a price and terms that are acceptable to you, counsel you any material benefits or risk of a transaction I actually know. And then what I'm asking of you. Basically, in return for my full commitment, I'm asking for yours. That means routing everything through me. If you see an open house sign on a Saturday, shoot me a text before, let me know. Or if you don't contact sellers directly, run everything through me so I can make sure that we're on the same page. So, and then next part goes into what happens. Rarely happens, but if I happen to have a listing that I'm the seller's agent, and you find this property is perfect for you, then I'm going to become a transaction broker in that case. So I'm not an advocate or agent for either party. I'm a facilitator throughout the process, and I still have the same uniform duties as far as disclosure. And I can't disclose to the seller you're paying more, and I can't disclose that the seller's going to accept less. So I'm more of a neutral party, but to facilitate the transaction and get you from contract to closing. And then if they want to end the agreement, say my goal is to provide the highest level of service, but for some reason things don't work out, then we certainly can address that. And I'm not going to keep your feet to the fire if the relationship isn't working out. But know that I'm here in your corner. I'm going to do my best for you. And of course the rest of the fine print in the agreement, which is standard Colorado fair housing laws and things like that. So that's pretty much the whole buyer agency agreement. So sign here.
Sign here now.
Sign here now. Anything you had when you're presenting that?
I don't think so.
Yeah. And sometimes it happens that these are presented via email. And so you can articulate this in a cover email as far as how you're going to represent them. And so we've got some templates and email templates as well in Equity Elevate that help with this too. So
yeah, I do have a templated email that I send out in CTM. Just covers it. The gist.
Any questions on the buyer agency agreement? Or? Good. Cool. One of the things that this came from one of the Buffini classes, the
full service permit.
Certified full CFSP. I keep wanting to get that backwards.
I know.
It's hard to say.
I have to
Say that 10 times really fast.
Yeah.
So basically, if someone that's had some experience in real estate and they've heard, well, this whole settlement thing, now buyer have to pay commission. This is a good graphic to use that talks about historically offers of compensation. Everything was tied into the MLS. There was agreement between the buyer and the buyer broker and the seller and listing broker, and everything was offered through the MLS. Well, now there's still agreements between the buyer and the buyer agent and the seller and the listing broker, but there's nothing in the MLS. There's no advertising of the compensation, so it is all negotiable through the contract, and which gives it more transparency than there used to be, which I think is great. So, yeah. Showing preparation and process. I think it sounds like a lot of you have done some showings, so you're pretty familiar with this, but this is just a guide on if you were starting out from scratch, the things you want to be prepared for in showing your buyers and some of the best processes to use and proper etiquette and so forth when showing properties. I think most people in this group are probably, have shown enough properties, you probably, do we want to go into any of this? Do you guys have any questions about this?
Nope.
Okay.
Just remember that there are 2 showing systems now, so make sure you go into MLS and see which one's on the listing. Don't just assume because you might not get the instructions.
Is Super now broker? What
Broker
was
Bay.
Broker Bay is
Yeah,
now
it's now Supra.
Supra?
Yeah. Yeah, and one thing I'd recommend,
I don't like it either.
I would, if you're part of Smedra, you get the Sentry Lock app for free, okay? And I would highly encourage getting that on your phone, okay? Because it makes you look more professional when you come across a Sentry Lock, that you can access that through your phone. And there's a lot of agents out there that aren't. And as a listing broker, when you use a Sentry Lock, it's pretty frustrating.
It is very frustrating. I've had that, and it drives me crazy because I've used Sentry Lock on my listings, and I can't tell you how many buyers agents didn't know how to use the lock. They didn't have the app on their phone, and they didn't know how to use it, and the amount of phone calls and texts I got because of it, and then they got frustrated, and I was like, just download the app,
It's pretty simple.
because this is not the only listing that you're going to come across that has this lockbox. Like, you're going to see it more times, so you might as well.
And I expect showing time's supposed to be close to an agreement where they're going to do one-day codes again for listing brokers, but
that was another issue.
If you come across and you get it when you set up a showing and it says it's Sentry Lock, make sure if you don't have the app, get the app. And if you don't have the app, you need to make sure that you get a one-day code from the listing broker. But we're one of the few markets in the country that don't use electronic lock boxes exclusively, and I expect that'll probably change because it's a more secure, system. But we're kind of behind the curve on that. But having, I think it just makes you stand out as being more professional if you have all the tools available to you. So
I think the big thing with that is go through your showing instructions before you ever meet with your buyer, because like the most anxiety filled situation is when you're standing at the door trying to figure it out and you look like you're freaking out and they can tell, and so
where's the lockbox? Oh, it's in the backyard or something, or it's in the garage door.
So just review all that stuff before you ever go out that day. So
good point.
Saves your
reputation.
Right,
anxiety.
exactly.
You didn't really want to see that
It's
house.
the keypad on the door, and you're looking around for a lockbox, and you're like,
Right, exactly. We've all been through that, huh? I think scheduling in the sequence of showings, basically making sure that, if there's a property that's highlighted that you see that's probably going to be perfect to the buyer, that's one of the best properties, I'd probably show them one that's maybe inferior to that one first, and then show the better property second. So they get a really good taste for what they don't want, and then they see the one that's better for them, right? Because they kind of need to warm up as well, and they need to warm up working with you too. So that's and then do it geographically that makes sense. You don't want to keep going back and forth and wasting time. The other thing that I think is important to know and be prepared for is when you're showing properties is what are some of the amenities around that, parks or schools or rec centers or open spaces, things like that, knowing what to point out to the buyer, that's right by those houses.
So if you mapping it out is huge. Obviously, it'll save you time. You can either do that with the map search on RE Colorado, or if all of them are with showing time, they do have the smart route that once you have them all in there, just click on the smart route and it'll give you the best route if you guys haven't used that before. But either
I
way,
haven't used the one in showing time. So what happens if I already
So-
made all the appointments? Or can I do it before I've made the appointments and get the map in showing time? Because I've
Yeah.
always done just in Erie, Colorado, the map.
yeah, so if they're all, so like say
If they have to
you
be all showing
search
time.
them all, you have them all ready, and
Yeah.
you click, and then you do a showing time cart.
Oh, okay.
It brings them all in. It'll like just bring you directly from MLS if you click
It's
showing
showing
time on the bottom, and then it'll ask you like, do you want a single showing or a showing time cart? If you have more clicked, it'll just do a cart for
Put
you.
it in the cart.
And then
showing
it'll
time. Okay.
bring up like all 7 listings, and then there's like a underneath it says smart route, and you click that, and then it'll reorganize them.
Do you find it better than the Erie, Colorado map?
I
route?
think, yeah.
Yeah.
think
I
so.
mean,
Okay.
I just it
It's
seems to be
fantastic.
legit, like
Okay.
because then you can look at the map and see, oh yeah, it does have me going, but. Say you want to start at a different one, you can
I can
Can move it.
renumber
You
it
can move
and
it.
then smart route it
Okay.
again.
Which on the Erie, Colorado, you can.
Yeah, you can do that a
reroute
little
it
bit too. Yeah. You can move
Okay.
them around.
Yeah.
It's a little glitchy on the Erie, Colorado.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
But it's a
Okay.
nice little feature.
I
like
love it.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's the tools are very nice to have. I mean, and it's nice when and like with showing time, you can actually download it right to your phone, and then as a schedule, and then have it right there, and then you can actually add to your Apple Maps or Google Maps. You can map them out and sequence them as well. So
Saves
it's,
you a lot of time and it's
Yes.
very efficient. It's like,
Yeah.
especially if the client knows the area and you go from one side to the other. It's like,
They
what are
get
you
pissed
doing?
off, yeah.
right.
Absolutely. So, and
Exactly.
it's easy to
Right.
use too. I love using that.
Yeah, me too.
The showing time.
It also tells you like from one showing to the next how many minutes it'll take you to
Yes.
get there, so you can figure
Time.
out like
Mhm.
if you can do them.
Where the bathroom stop might be. Or where
Yeah.
the-
Right. There you go. Good point.
Yeah.
And if
So-
you have someone that's in from out of town relocating, you may have to stop for
Yeah.
lunch, so you have to plan for that. If they're doing a power tour, for have a weekend to buy a house, right? So,
Mhm.
Definitely get
Yeah.
the lead. along the
right.
route.
Those are fun buyers to have though, but it
Yeah.
definitely you find yourself all over the place.
You get pretty wiped out.
Yeah. And you get your steps in that day, right?
Yeah.
Up and down stairs. and-
I also bring a bind. I bind all the listings in with the map,
Mhm.
especially if it's a full day,
Yeah.
and I give that to them. And
Right.
somebody's the scriber after each house, or to write the notes because by the time we're
Exactly.
done, you're gonna get blurry.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they really like when I bring that.
Yeah. And
If
there's
it's, if it's that kind of buyer.
right.
We've got all
And
that.
in one of the tools in Elevate actually is a little chart, a little sheet that the buyer can rate the property and you can make notes.
Put
what
that
they
in
like.
the package.
Yeah,
too.
put that in the packet as well. That's a nice little tool to have with your listings. Yeah.
Where is
Because I
that?
forget.
It's in Elevate under
Oh.
the marketing center.
Okay.
Hello, how you doing?
Hi.
So yeah, I mean, we've talked about these things before in sales meetings as far as property etiquette. Making sure you leave a card, making sure that the lights are off, the doors are locked, or things that. And it's easy if you have buyers with kids and they're all over the place to lose focus. So you got to make sure you're focused on those very important things, and making sure that the basics are done, the doors are locked, and the lights are off, or if they're supposed to be left on, they're left on.
Yeah, read your showing instructions so you don't let out a cat or something.
My God, the cats.
I know,
That's right.
it's true.
Then can they just lock it somewhere? Because they just let her loose. And of course the kids again. And then they opened the door and then she went out.
Oh
Seriously, it's like nightmare.
Yeah, it's horrible.
no! Yes,
It's a very
Yeah.
stressful situation.
right.
Very.
Oh, see,
I
Sarah's
feel
upset
like
about
I
it
learned
too.
in every transaction I learned something.
Something
Yeah.
new, right?
And
Yeah.
it's never easy. It's always, oh my God, I had to stay there for over 2 hours calling the listing
Looking
agent.
for the cat.
That's not what, yeah, looking
Yeah.
for, listing agent is not answering.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
something I think that when you're showing a house to coach the buyer on is, there's a lot of homes that have audio and video recording going on. So So mention to them not to say too much inside the house or right outside the front door to temper their conversation, because we should talk about those things separately. Because if they're over enthusiastic, it might not help their negotiating position, or if they're saying really bad things about the property, then that may not be too good either. So definitely just coach them on that before you start looking at homes.
And is it still legal to have cameras inside and
It's
listening
legal.
to us talking and watching us going everywhere?
Yeah, it's legal. In the MLS, it should be disclosed that there are audio video
Should
recording.
be.
Yeah,
Should
be. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
supposed to be.
I hate when you're moving and they're moving with you. What are you doing? It's like the camera.
You just
I'm
put
like,
like a little Kleenex or something.
oh my god! I wish I could unplug them.
Yeah, right.
But but
Yeah.
it's still.
Yeah, it's legal. Yeah. And
It's still
I think the
legal.
biggest one is the Ring cameras on the front door, because a lot of people don't realize those.
Yes.
Well, those are recording everything.
And they continue inside the Ring cameras.
Well,
Well, they have other
for
cameras.
a certain time, until they stop, right? But they don't necessarily.
Unless they have stuff inside.
They don't automatically record everything you're doing inside, do they?
Not the outside one, they can't.
The outside.
But if they have indoor cameras,
Other ones, they
Could
can
have a
record you.
Ring indoor.
they could have a camera, audio video
Camera, yeah.
I tell my clients, I always say, act like you're on camera, because you probably are.
Right.
So just know that.
I like
And
that.
like you said, like don't say anything. Don't be too positive, but don't be like too negative.
Right.
But I just had an experience with that. So one of my buyers, we were walking through a home, and it's her dream home. And she was glowing, and like her face was red, and big smiles, right? And we're walking through, and I'm looking at her, and I'm like, "Play it cool, play it cool, tone it down."
Right.
But then 2 weekends ago, I was hosting an open house at my listing, and there were buyers that came in, and their house, they had a showing at their house at the same time that they were at my open house, on their house that's for sale. The wife was walking around the open house with her phone like this, watching them, listening to the entire conversation that was going on in their house, right? She was
Sure.
verbally out loud, like responding to what she was hearing
Oh
them
my
talk
God.
about. And she was walking through the entire house watching them, and I thought, she is so distracted.
Right.
She is not even paying attention to this house
Mhm.
because she was so involved in what was
Right.
going on in her house that
Sure.
she was literally walking around just
Wow.
watching them on
Yeah.
camera and
Yeah.
listening to every word.
That's what they do.
She was counting
They
down
said,
at your
I
house.
know, right? I was like,
She doesn't know
okay, so
it's
you're
here.
not interested?
Yeah, they're curious.
Yeah,
And
Yeah,
just,
they're curious.
security wise, it's their
Yeah.
house, so they, from security
Yeah.
standpoint, but also they want to hear the feedback from the buyers,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
you can't blame them.
I know.
But
But that was interesting. I was like, yep, there you go. There's
Yeah.
proof they do it.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say they were saying, "Oh my God, this place is huge."
Well, she was responding. She was like, "That's not true."
Oh my god.
So when you're showing, don't be afraid to point out the pros and cons of a property, right? If a property backs to a busy road, say, well, there's a certain percentage of buyers that aren't going to want to back to a busy road, right? So this could affect your ability when you resell it. Okay. Some people, it doesn't bother them. They like that there's no one behind them, but so you have to point out the pros and cons to location, to things in the property. One example, first time buyer was showing a house and he liked it, but I mean the front, the family room, and it was only a family room, living room, and it was so small, like it wouldn't bother him now, but that's why this house has been on the market for a long time, because it was like ridiculous design, and so might want to look at that. It's kind of small. It's like 12 by 10 or something. Right.
You're stating facts more than opinion.
Right, more facts. Yeah, more facts. Definitely. In my opinion, it doesn't matter. It's what the buyer wants, but you definitely, they want to hear what your expertise is and what the general market is going to do as well. with that
What you've
house.
seen before.
It's a fine line between helping them see what could be an issue in the future, rather than talking them out of a sale.
Right.
Yeah,
This
ultimately,
is just
it's their
such an
house.
ugly room.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
No
that's your-
one's ever
that's
gonna
your-
want this house
that's
again.
your-
I had someone
Keep
with
your opinions to yourself, right?
Yeah.
the back in a busy street,
Mhm.
and then so they go out they close the door, they come back, and I'm just watching them.
Mhm.
And then I say, yeah, busy streets, it's busy. And it was around 5 p.m. and she's like, woo, and I'm like, absolutely. And she's like, I love it.
Okay.
I love it too.
Yeah.
And I say that, but then she loved it. So now we're looking for houses
But back to
that are
the-
back in busy streets. And I'm glad we did because their house is fantastic now. With beautiful views and nothing.
Oh, it's a good price.
No, it was. I don't think we got it like as good, but it was by Southridge. I don't know if you're familiar with Highlands Ranch, but Southridge and Monarch.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
I would buy that house too now. And but yes,
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
yes,
Somebody
because I
else
was
said-
like, oh
So-
shoot, oh my God, they're going back in it,
Right.
and then of course I tell them what's going on, and they're like,
Right.
we love this.
I always joke that like the highways just sound like the ocean for Colorado.
Oh my God, since you're having these issues, but like some people want something going on.
Yeah, I can keep that one in mind. That's a good one.
Keep in mind, the home they buy today is your future listing,
Right.
hopefully.
Hope it's so.
Yeah.
Right? So,
True.
so things that are sellable, features that are sellable, but and there is a there is a house for every buyer. Right?
Exactly what I was
So-
going to say.
so
Absolutely.
it all depends on
So
the
I'm not
price,
worried.
and the value, right? So sometimes some of the houses are back to busier roads, like Highland Ranch Parkway. They're on huge lots, so they got a
Yes.
huge lot,
You
so
get more.
they want that. So you have a bigger lot,
A little
than-
bit better
than average,
value.
right?
You lose one thing.
Right,
but
and,
you get
and it's a little bit
something
better
else.
value, so it all depends. But there's going to be, it's
Yeah,
all
what they're willing to
ebb
sell.
and flow and give and take, right? So
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
let's go back to the outline here, and so writing competitive offer. I think again it depends on the situation and that particular property and the buyer and what you're up against with that buyer. But there's some really good strategies. These are on the Equity Elevate site as well. And basically, contacting the listing agent, again, proper etiquette, contacting them, see what's most important to the seller.
Please
Fine.
call them.
Yeah.
Don't text them.
Right.
Like,
Yes.
please try and establish rapport with that agent that you're trying to win that house for your buyer. It's been very common for everybody to text nowadays. And if they won't call you back, then obviously you gotta do what you gotta do. But try and establish that rapport. And that should be one of your value propositions for your buyers or your sellers is that I will try and win this agent over for you. So if there is competition, they want to work with us because I've already established that relationship with them in the beginning.
Simple things, avoid typos, unchecked boxes, sloppy offer presentation. I know when on the listing side of it, when I have offers come in that are very sloppy, it's like, they're just not prepared. They're just not taking their time, and there's a bunch of boxes unchecked, or it's the house is built into 2021 and they have lead-based paint disclosure, deadlines, things like that. So just make sure it's just look over it, triple check it, make sure it's written properly. In competitive offer, include escalation clauses are an option for competitive offer situations when you run into those. And we have that, that's available. Let us know in the hotline if you get in that situation. We can provide you that clause if you don't already have it for those situations. And of course, asking for closing cost credits, concessions, increasing earnest money, financing options, and of course, great communication from the lender. I like to have my lender contact the listing broker directly with a phone call and just to touch base and let them know how well qualified the buyer is. And then putting as much money down as possible. Again, it depends on your buyer situation and the property. We're running into some situations where there's not as many competitive offers, but you'd be surprised. I had a listing that was on the market for 45, 50 days and no offers. All of a sudden we got an offer in, then a second offer. So
Always.
it was great, right? But that happens. So keep that in mind. And,
I would like your input on number one. So building the report always with the listing agent. Now, do you ask them about the commission on that call or not? So I had mixed reviews where no, do not ask. And if you submit an offer, just submit your commission in the offer. Now, if you ask him over the phone and they say, no, we're not offering, then you look bad asking to get so.
I usually don't ask
Okay.
myself personally. I just write it in the offer, but
Okay.
that the seller's going to pay it, and that's pretty much 99% of the time. It's 29.1 the seller's paying. It's not coming from the listing brokerage firm.
Perfect. Okay. Okay.
I don't ask either.
Okay.
Because I figure, I figure it's kind of like the rapport for my buyers too. Like my first questions are for my buyers,
Okay.
not myself. So I mean,
Perfect.
I think that, and then like I just submitted an offer where the listing agent called back and he was like, well, we're only offering this. And I'm like, that's fine. Like just counter. But yeah, I don't
Okay.
know.
I'm okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
So
And then,
I'm just
and find out what's most important to the seller. So, is closing date, do they need post-closing
Perfect.
occupancy, what are the most vital things for the seller.
Thank you.
And these links are all in Equity Elevate as well, and the how-tos as well as far as writing competitive offer. Key amount of offers can be something that keeps kind of point out. Offers can be too high. I had a multiple offer situation, and one came in that was really high, but it was an FHA buyer and was a little amount down, but they were like 20,000 over asking price, and and so. And we ended up taking an offer that was about 10 over asking price, but because that other buyer just didn't seem as well qualified, and there was no way I was going to appraise for that price, right? So counseling the buyer on those things as well. And then closing and possession dates, finding out if the seller needs post-closing occupancy rent back. Just one thing to note, the law is going to change next year on post-closing occupancy agreements as far as security deposits. 2027, that will change with some a bill that was just recently passed. But right now, if you do zero rent, you cannot get a security deposit for your buyer from the seller. Okay? And,
You cannot.
Cannot. But if you charge rent, you can get, let's say you charge $1,000, you can get $1,000 security deposit.
Isn't it twice as much?
Twice as
rent?
much, yeah.
So
That's
it's
two
only
times,
2 times the amount of
Yeah.
rent that you charge. So
But that's changing. They passed a law that because it was really stupid for real estate transactions to not allow that flexibility on the security deposits.
Counseling your buyers on. You have those buyers that want to come in super low, or I want everything in the moon, and just letting them know, like on the listing side of things, we don't want to be insulting. Like this is our first conversation with these sellers, and let's not start it off with like, hey, we're going to insult you and try and get everything for us. Like we're trying to do a win-win situation. Yes, I'm working for you. I want you to get the best deal, but the best deal is also including like not making you look like a jerk, and that they want to work with you. So sometimes that's a conversation to have as well. And just be like, if you were on the other side.
Right. Yeah, along with that, inclusions, exclusions, double check the MLS, check with the listing broker, make sure that you've got that all straight, because there's certain things that some sellers are very attached to, and they definitely want those items excluded. And so those are important things to make sure you've got accurate in the contract as well.
And that your buyer understands too.
Yeah.
Like, and you think that you go over them, and then your buyer's like, I thought there was going to be a washer and dryer, and everybody's mad, and you're like, crap, I have to buy a washer and dryer.
Right.
Where am I going to find a 10-year-old washer and dryer?
Right. Or the washer and dryer is supposed to be excluded, and
Right.
and they were left by the seller, right? Things like that.
So
Congratulations, your buyer has an accepted offer. Woo-hoo.
Nice.
There's a nice checklist in Elevate as well, a transaction management checklist there too, which we'll go in there and see if we can get to that. Oops. Oh, wait, it's slow here. There it goes. It's not that slow. It's just a little bit slow. Offer. There we go. So this is a complete buyer-side transaction management checklist that's in Elevate, which is real handy, and basically kind of taking through and everything you need to do throughout the whole process with working with the buyer. So something that using CTM is very handy, and if you haven't tied in your calendar on your phone to CTM, you'll want to do that. You can do that in CTM, and so all your deadlines will show up on your phone. Okay? So it's real handy. So you can set up reminders as well, so that emails you reminders. You never want to miss a deadline for your buyer. That's being on the other side of transactions, working with the seller. I've had situations where inspection objections come in a day late. That's like being a day late, $1 short, right? So, in this situation, it wasn't that much. The seller was reasonable and said, okay, we'll take care of these things, but they didn't have to, right? And the buyer agent got a get out of jail free card, so to speak, right? So, but it could be a situation where it's something major, right? So never miss those deadlines, and also be prepared if you're up against a deadline. Try to get it done before, not up in the 11th hour. It's harder to do things last minute if it's a resolution deadline, if it's a loan availability deadline. You don't want to be up to that 11th hour. Try to get everything done the day before if you can, because the contract would terminate or if the buyer wants to terminate the contract because they need to extend their loan availability. Just really, really prepared and really recognize what your deadlines are. It's just that's one of the worst things you could do for a buyer that needs to terminate a contract and it's you miss a deadline. I don't think it would go over very well. Right? That goes without saying, right? So, inspection objections, we do have a vendor spreadsheet that has a lot of resources there. We're continually trying to update that. If you have recommended vendors that you want to add to the list, get them over to us. Also, if you find one that's the information's not current, let us know that as well.
Katie.
Yeah, we got some of that. Yeah. We appreciate that. Try to keep it updated, and it's just it's an ongoing process.
Yeah, I know it's hard, but I appreciate you guys trying to keep it up to date, because I can't tell you how many times I've used it, and there are vendors who never call you back, or who are no longer in business, or who provide terrible service. It's like getting out of there.
I think we've got all the steps to, throughout the process, and there's a lot of steps when you're working with a buyer, right? There's a lot of things to do. But those are the opportunities you have to create referrals when you're working with your buyers. If you shine in those situations and making sure that they're well protected, they're well taken care of, those are where your referrals for future clients come from, or even during the process, right? So.
Thank you.
Sure, good to see you.
Thank you very much.
Hi.
And everyone understands the transaction packet, all that stuff. I think you guys are all have done. There's a couple newer agents. You've had a closing, haven't you?
Not yet.
Okay. In Elevate, all these steps as far as the transaction packet, we'll certainly walk you through that too when the time comes as well. But everything can be submitted in an email or through .loop depending on what you like to use better. But email is usually a little easier, all in one PDF. So, and the checklists are all there in CTM. So you can provide that. Yeah.
So the one PDF thing, the checklist still has all, we talked about the disclosures, like wire fraud and all that in one, but on the checklist they're still listed separately.
Oh, that's okay, because you have all the equity disclosure under one in CTM. That's just all those disclosures. You can just check them off separately because they're all included in that one.
Right, but we don't have to do both. Just
no.
Okay.
Yeah,
and then the one PDF thing, you mean when we make that folder in CTM?
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, so basically you print to PDF and then you select all the documents in CTM and then makes one PDF and then send that into payroll. Yeah. Exactly.
And the new form that we have to include now,
Thanks for coming.
I forget what it's called. The
Consent.
consent form.
Consent.
Maybe I missed it, but I don't feel like I saw it on the checklist.
It's on the checklist.
It is on the checklist?
Yeah, it's been updated now.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty close to the bottom now. Yeah. But yeah, and hopefully they change the buyer agency agreements, listing agreements, so that we don't have to have that form. But you never know.
So
Which form were you talking about?
the informed
Informed
Consent?
consent disclosure.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a new form because they changed the buyer agency and the seller agency agreement, and they kind of took that out. Basically, it just allows, as a brokerage, we're disclosing how we're going to deal with transactions if they're two brokerages from
Right.
two brokers from equity. That we're going to, we have one managing broker, if you will, right? Or principal broker, I should say. And so we're going to assign brokers to help each side of that if we're doing those situations.
So it is in the packet now because I had them sign it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just
It's in
wanted to
the,
make
it's in the
double check.
checklist. And
Yeah.
It's, yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. So, other things as far as to do throughout the process, I think just making sure you're all buttoned up on the final details. That the buyer, you get the information for the gas and electric, as far as getting utilities turned on, and again, we have templates and emails, so you can email your buyer and follow up on those things and follow up with the listing broker as far as what information you need. Make sure you get all the keys, if there's any fobs for amenities or a pool or anything like that. Make sure you get all those details as well. And I like to use and a lot of people, it's a Google form that has all the information that the seller isn't doing that. You can provide that to the listing broker to have the seller fill out. And basically all the communication that needs to happen, where the water shutoff is, has the sprinkler system been turned on or is it still winterized, and, all those details with that. How many keys there are, what the mailbox location and number is, all those things. It's in a Google form where you can provide that to the listing broker and have the seller fill that out.
Where is that form?
It was in our sellers class. We'll add it to this link
Yeah.
as well. So it's a form there that's a Google form. That,
Yeah, because I was looking for that form to send to my
Yeah.
sellers so that they could fill it out.
Right.
But I looked in Elevate. And I didn't
Yeah, it's
see
not
it.
there.
Okay.
I'll send it to you.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll probably should add it to Elevate maybe
Yeah, that
if
would
we
be
can
good.
if we can do that.
Yeah.
The other thing is, I have a really bad, I have a transaction coordinator now, and she thankfully remembers, but when you do a post-closing occupancy agreement, remember that your seller, if you check that box, or the seller needs to provide the renter's insurance policy before you close. So that was something I always forgot. What else with the post-closing occupancy agreement?
A walkthrough prior to giving up possession. Yeah.
Having a key at closing, even if you have a post-closing occupancy agreement, your buyer should get at least one key at closing because they technically are landlords now. They own that property. They should have access to the property. So sometimes I've had a listing agent push back on that and just kind of explaining like, hey, but they're owners now, so they need to have access. And so one key would be great to provide, or keep the lockbox on or something. But just remember, if you have a post-closing occupancy agreement, there's a couple things to just keep in mind for your buyer when you go into that.
Something I do before closing is I confirm with the lender that everything's good to go. I confirm with the closer that the closers received the documents from the lender and they've balanced the closing disclosure with the lender. So you want to take those steps and not just assume everything's going to be there. So if there's sometimes it doesn't get balanced until the day before closing or day of closing, unfortunately. But if you start a few days prior to that, making sure everything is, then you can make the appropriate calls that you need to make to the lender or to the closer if they're not communicating, making sure that's happening. With the 3-day period requirement now prior to closing, as far as the closing disclosure to the buyer, I'm not seeing as many issues with that as we used to many years ago, but it's definitely still, we want to make sure and follow up on that with the lender and with the closer, just so there's no surprises. Day of closing, well, we don't have the CD balance, and it's an hour before closing, right? You want to try to make it as smooth as possible for your buyer. So definitely make those phone calls, make those emails to follow up on those details before a few days before closing. and also making sure the buyer confirm what the buyer needs to bring to closing and how they're going to get their money to closing. Are they going to wire the funds, or are they going to bring a cashier's check? So those are other details to review with the buyer, and review the buyer's settlement statement with them. Some lenders will do that, but also I like to do it just to make sure the settlement statement's a lot easier to read than the official closing disclosure. And so the buyer settlement statement, just make sure you send that to them prior and review any questions they have on it.
Make sure they have a valid photo ID. Most of us don't look at our driver's license until we pull it out and it's expired.
Right.
So just make sure, like, once you go under contract, hey, have you checked your driver's license? Make sure it's not expired for me.
Right.
It's not fun.
No, that's not fun.
That would not be good.
Yeah.
That's a good point. That's a good point. And I think that in the next thing, of course, after closing, following up with the buyer, I usually follow up. If they're getting possession right away, follow up right away the next day, make sure they got in okay. I follow up a few days later, see how the move's going, and then follow up on every couple weeks, initially, and then start a monthly follow up after that. So again, you want to make sure that there aren't any surprises or anything that the seller was, left behind that wasn't supposed to be left behind, which that never happens, right?
Never.
And there's, I think, of course, handwritten notes, closing gifts, all those things all help you to generate more repeat business and referral business.
Charcuterie boards.
Charcuterie boards, there you go. That's pretty good.
That's
huh?
pretty cool.
Yeah.
Where did
it's
you get
cool.
this one from?
Oh, Casey Carlson, one of our equity agents. She started a little side hustle
Oh.
for it.
Well, that's good to know.
Yes.
Yeah, so
This
she
was the
brought it
small
for us
one.
today.
Oh.
It's not
This
small.
was the small one,
That's
which is
pretty
pretty
nice
big.
one.
Yeah, it is
Yes.
pretty good size. Yeah. Any questions or anything, or any thoughts, or?
So I have a story about this past weekend. I was showing my buyers an off-market property, and the listing agent went out of his way to make the home very inviting for my buyers, and to the point where he said, "Why don't you?" He gave us like a 2-hour window to be there because he was like, "Enjoy your time, experience that house, relax,
Have a
I was
beer.
like, right. So then like, I mean, this guy is like all week long. He was like building up this property all week long, and we had no idea what to expect. But it's like he keeps telling us all these great things about it, so our expectations were very high.
Sure.
So then we go, and he had asked me. He said, "What are the buyers?" He's like, "What's their poison? What do they like to drink?" Right. So I told him like their favorite drinks. He asked me what the wife's favorite color was. So I told him my favorite color.
Whoa.
No. So this is quite the experience. So I told him. So and then like a day before, he says, and I have a surprise for you also. He's like, okay, right, and then he's also talking about how great the property is.
Full court
along with
press,
this.
huh?
Yes, yeah. I mean, it was.
This is off market property.
Yes,
Okay.
this is like built up, right? He's like telling us all these wonderful things,
The stage
I
is
had
not
met
the
the
seller.
seller. Yeah, I had met the seller at an open house, and so we show up. He's there to greet us, and then but then he left. We show up. He has a bartender there.
Wow.
A bartender, a full charcuterie board. The bartender is making their favorite cocktails that they like. He has flowers for the wife to take home in her favorite color. And the bartender had an elixir to put in her drink to make it purple because that's her favorite color.
Oh my
to make the drink purple. I mean, it was.
What was the price point?
Okay, that's what I.
I know. 1.15.
Well, there you have it.
But
I would think like 5 million.
Yes. Right, yes. We think over 2.
Yeah.
I know. I mean, he
Wow.
went like
All out.
all out.
Wow.
Like,
What was the buyer? What were the buyer's reaction?
so they were
Yeah.
very, very impressed.
Yeah.
Very impressed. And I'm reading Unreasonable Hospitality right now.
Yeah.
And so I asked him, I was like, so have you read that book? Like, because she
Yeah.
was doing everything that
Right,
that book
sure,
says to do, you
sure.
know. But yeah,
That's,
this is the buyers that were like
right.
glowing and like,
Right.
I love this house. I
So,
love this
did you
house.
do it
It's
often?
my dream house.
We're so glowing they
And
had a
I'm
drink
like-
too, you know. So.
Like, yeah, right. I was like, maybe one less drink.
Like I'm gonna get them liquored up and they're gonna make me an offer.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
that's
And
like
I
a
was
timeshare
but I thought
presentation.
it's really smart on his part.
Yeah,
Because he's
yeah.
sitting there thinking, right, they're going to make themselves at home. So in their mind, they're already moving in, right?
Yeah,
I was
that's
like,
interesting.
they're already thinking where they're going to put their furniture.
Right, where they put the booze, too.
We're the real buyers, right?
Where were the
Right.
buyers? Yeah.
It was quite
Let's
the
find
experience.
the bartender to move in.
Right.
Right.
It was great. It
Does
was
the bartender come with the house?
So
Yeah.
she gives me her card, right? And she's like, "Oh yeah, I do this." You know, I was like, "Well, that's good to know." Like, I might have to steal something here, like you know, like I have to hire you later,
Right,
you know, to do
yeah.
something.
That's great.
It was so crazy, but every day it was like an update for the whole entire week, building
Wow.
up to this
Wow.
to night, right? And then I know,
So you guys are under contract.
yes, we're under contract.
Congratulations.
Yes, we are under contract. Yes, but it was. I told my seller, I told my buyers
On that one.
on that one.
Oh my
Yeah.
god.
Went under contract, and then it was so funny. I told my buyer, I was like, what do you think he's like on a date? Like, this is just to sell a house. Like, can you imagine like a first date? Like, this guy must pull out all the stops.
I'd be scared. I'd be a little scared. Something's wrong
But
here.
that was like the
I
crazy.
know. I would
that was
feel
the
like
crazy
that.
speech for us.
Yeah.
That was wild.
Yeah.
I've never seen anybody do that before.
Wow.
So a few things in the process here. We've got on these slides. We've got all the checklist items, everything as far as writing inspection objection, everything, and those we of course we have resources for that online as well, and then things that we're going to do right before closing on the checklist and 3 days and everything that we've got and on your closing, after your closing. So I think if you look, we'll send these slides out too. They'll be good reminders and also links to all the different tools that we have as far as presentation and templates for email templates, all those things that you can put in your toolbox to have ready to go for your buyers. So, yeah.
Great.
I love that story though. That's a great
Great.
it's a great
Yeah,
story.
that's
What
good.
a way to wow buyers.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I found. I was like,
Yeah.
wow. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I noted all that, right? In
Right.
case I ever need
How
to
was it off
impress
market?
some
How did you
buyers.
find it off market?
It was, as the listing agent put it, he said it's serendipitous. But so I was hosting open houses for my listing, and that's not in my neighborhood. And a buyer came in, and we were chatting, and it just so happens that she lives in my neighborhood, which I was like, oh, okay, like, that's great. This is like 20 minutes away from where we live. And so she was telling me how she's downsizing, and so she's out looking at homes, and and her house is about to go on the market. Well, I know my buyers are looking for a house in our neighborhood, so I started asking her questions about her house, and she's answering like all these questions. I'm like, yep, check. Like, this is everything on
This
this
is the
list.
house,
This
yeah.
is the house. Like, this it sounds like the house, right? I'm like, this is checking all their boxes. And then, but there was nothing on the MLS because the seller bought it in 2012, so there's no pictures, nothing to go off of. And so I just told her, I said, well, it's like my buyers would be really interested in seeing your house, and so she put me in contact with. She gave my information to the listing agent.
To her future listing agent.
No,
It
she
wasn't
they-
on yet.
No, but they had a signed agreement for months before this. They'd already had a signed agreement for a long time, and so
A non-MLS exclusive, non-MLS.
Well, I don't know what their agreement is. Possibly, yeah.
yeah,
Possibly. Or they could have had a future listing date on it.
yeah.
It was going to be listed in the future, and the seller was zealous of getting
Yep.
it sold, right?
So I gave her my information, and I said, so she gave my information to her listing agent, and then he contacted me about it and was telling me about the property. I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe we'll check it out.
Yeah. Cool.
Great.
Good.
But it was just,
Gotta be
it was
careful.
very random. You never
Once it
know
came
how
as a
somebody's who's gonna pop into your open house. Like, it was.
Yeah. That's crazy.
It
So I
was
have a question.
crazy.
I'm sorry for interrupting.
no, you're good.
So how much do you typically spend on a closing gift?
If they're my friends, no.
Well, they've become friends now.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got like warranties, which could be
$700.
yeah, $500 to
Yeah.
$700 bucks. I've spent, I mean, on some of my clients who've worked with me before, like I've spent up to $1,000 on something for them. If I know that they're in need of something. But I've also heard, I mean, I've also spent like $100. Here's a Home Depot gift card
Gotcha.
on, you know,
I
a
was
lower
just,
end
I was
condo.
just curious what the
Um,
consensus is among.
Yeah, does anybody
Closing
else
gifts?
have closing gift ideas or thoughts?
Just depends on the situation, like you said.
On the dollar amount, but I mean, I'm spend more like 300, 500.
I feel like I'm usually around 250, something like that. Kind of depends on who the person is. Well, mine's more like who price point, and then who the buyer is, and if there's something special. Like I always pay attention, you know, if they're really interested in something. So what I get them might be a little more expensive because it might be something that they really love.
I know
but
they
I know
want a
it's
dog,
something
but
that
I'm
they're
not
gonna
buying
appreciate.
They want a dog.
They want a dog.
In that book,
Go buy 'em a
Uncommon
puppy.
Hospitality is some good examples of finding something that's more geared to them personally as opposed to just a generic, you know,
Right.
gift, right? So yeah, that's I think that's very cool.
That's such a good book.
That they can definitely remember their name,
Mhm.
you know, and it's something that
So in
in
other words,
5 years,
get the dog.
that black cardboard,
Love the
and
dog
your-
for a long
and then
time.
your name on the back, their name on the front, your name on the back, because it's
Right.
like, who's that agent? I can't remember because they don't, unless you're calling.
Well,
them
and if it
and
has your
says
name
us.
on it, and your
We're
logo,
minus
you
a
can
few
write it
people
off.
now, but we can get a photo.
Maybe I should go on the other end.
It's like,
There you go.
Yeah, do it.
Good idea.
If it's not random.
Really?
Yeah.
I
But
can't
it's
talking at that point.
Do you guys mind if I grab